I'm David Hazard, author, publishing consultant, and founder of Ascent, an international prep school for authors. We help aspiring writers develop books and launch their careers in publishing. I'm here today to talk with Nancy Hannon about her book, A Way Out, a story for anyone trapped in a bad relationship. Nancy, I want to welcome you here today.
Thank you, David.
And I also want to thank you for writing this incredibly brave memoir. You were in a marriage. Your husband is now deceased. But you were in a marriage for many years to a highly respected professional. You lived in a great home in a wonderful upscale neighborhood. You had beautiful children. You were a professional person. From all outward appearances, you had a great marriage, a great life. And yet, what you're writing about, what was happening underneath the surface, was an incredibly abusive marriage, both physically and emotionally. The fact that you survived and are now writing about this is incredible to me and very brave. And I want to ask you, what at this time inspired you to write this book?
Well, different things. Number one, if you remember, you pushed me to write this book. And pushed isn't the right word. You motivated me to write it.
Thank you.
I was very reluctant to write the book because I didn't want to air the dirty laundry of my life. I wasn't sure how it would affect the children, seeing this in print. And I wanted to think about it for a while. I wanted to write the book I was writing, which was the book I just recently finished. But you told me to put that one on hold because this book had the potential to help other people. And while I was thinking about whether I should do it or not, a thought popped into my head, something I had read many years ago out of Viktor Frankl's book. And he said, if there is meaning in life, there is meaning in suffering. And I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe there is meaning in all those years. But I didn't think there was. I just thought it was something I had done wrong and I was being punished, and I had a lot of false reasons why I put myself in such a place. However, one day in our office, I worked for a gynecologist. This woman came in, and I asked her why her sister, who was also a patient, continued to break her appointments. My boss, the doctor I worked for, was about to release her and tell her to go somewhere else. And she closed the door and said, because she doesn't want him to see all the bruises on her face. And it turned out that she had her nose broken, her jaw was rewired, she had broken bones in her body, and here is a woman in very good financial circumstances, lived in a beautiful home, had a lovely lifestyle. And as she began talking, I thought, she's talking about me 20 years ago. And I thought, my God, this can't be. She said, no, she won't talk to anyone. She won't talk about it. She's so embarrassed. And I thought, I have to write that book. I have to. Maybe there is meaning in the suffering that I went through. And I told this woman, the patient that was sitting there, I was writing a book at that point. I hadn't started yet, but I said, I'm writing a book about that. And she begged me to give her a copy as soon as it was finished because she wanted to have her sister to come to her home and read it. You can't send it to her. And I thought about it, and then I decided I will write the book. And you and I have been working on it. We did work on it. And as I wrote, I began seeing all the people that I was writing the book for. One by one, I would hear their stories, and I would think, just wait a little bit, and maybe something I lived through could help you. And that's really why I ended up writing the book, and we were able to keep out of it much of what happened. So it wasn't a story about the abuse as much as it was about my dealing with it and how I could not deal with it and why I didn't, and then how I found my way out and how I wanted to pass this on with recommendations to people who find themselves trapped.
Nancy, this is an incredibly timely topic because as a society, we are trying to define how do we protect women. Violence against women is a very important subject for us to address. And in fact, we're struggling to try to come up with the right laws and the right way to implement protection for women. So you're writing on an extremely timely topic. Can you tell us briefly what your story is about?
It is about my dealing with a marriage that started out wonderful and gradually progressed into something of terror. The way I responded to it was pretty much rooted in my childhood, I believe, and I bring that up in one chapter. I go through from my childhood up to the marriage. I just cover it, condense it, but all of the little happenings that told me who I was and how I felt about myself, till I had basically had a toxic opinion of myself. And so I fall right into this abuse pattern. However, I learned in writing the book that I was not the cause of the abuse. And I did quite a bit of research in reading about abused women and abused men, men who abuse women, and the theme through it was, with the therapy I had and the counseling, you didn't cause the abuse. You were just, they chose you. The abuser chooses his victim because of who they are and what they're capable of dealing with. But it didn't help me during those years. It didn't help at all because I just didn't believe it back then. And but the book shows how I found my way out of this abusive relationship and how I finally began to see myself as a person of value, and that I did matter, my opinions mattered, and there was one crisis that determined the immediate move out of the house, and which is in the book. But I found in there many things, many ways that women can find their way out of an abusive relationship, and that's the end of the book. I put that in there for them.
Good. You're talking in very general terms here, and I understand because it's a difficult topic, and I, having walked through it with you as your coach, I know it was extremely difficult for you to go back and live through the scenes that finally drove you to have to escape, really, to probably save your own life. And I just lost my own thread there. Sorry.
That's fine. Keep going.
Okay. Where was I? Now I'm lost in my own brain. You finished talking about...
how the end of the book...
Oh, yeah, how the end of the book. About Okay, on 3. Nancy, you take us through so many dark and difficult scenes, which I find to be necessary so that people can identify and understand that this wasn't sort of garden variety, just name calling or not buying you flowers for Valentine's Day. This was really serious, emotional, verbal, even physical abuse. And at the end, you essentially fled for your life to save your life. Nancy, the scenes that you write in this book, some of them are very dark and difficult, but I found them to be completely necessary so that people who are living with abuse, suffering from abuse, can really understand and identify with how somebody can allow themselves to stay in a difficult situation. You had children. You had an upbringing that told you women should stay with their husbands no matter what. You should be faithful. And yet you did find a way out. That's marvelous. It's a marvelous story of how you escaped with your life, really. I'm wondering if you made any discoveries while you were in the course of writing this book.
I did. I found that what I was so hesitant to talk about was easier to acknowledge, either on writing about it or if someone were to ask me about it. I didn't feel like it was such a shameful thing. All I felt was shame those years, and I don't mind telling people who talk about their own abuse that it's something that we really need to forgive ourselves for. And an incident which brings that out to me was, I may be jumping around a little bit, but after my husband died, I was speaking with a medium, a woman who I've known for many years and is well respected in the community. And she said to me, your husband is having a very difficult time moving on in this next life. He is filled with remorse over this life, and he needs your forgiveness. Could you do that? And I found it was much easier for me to forgive my husband than it was for me to forgive myself for dealing with this for all the years I did. And it was an enlightening thought that women need to know that they're not at fault, and they need to forgive themselves and speak up to these bullies who are That's basically what they are. And you confront them and you walk away from them. And that saying that I don't know who said it, but I have it printed up somewhere, said, there is no way out of a desperate situation, but life intervenes and you find yourself on a path you never knew existed. And that's exactly what happened to me. The incident occurred, I left him abruptly, and I had no money, no place to go. I had 5 children, 2 in college. I thought, how in the world am I ever going to live? And they're all educated. I'm in a happy life, and you do find your way out. You just have to go.
So in my almost 35 years of coaching writers, I find that the process of writing a book and bringing out, in your case, since it's a memoir, material from the past, that handling the story of the past has a way of changing people. Do you find that writing this book changed you in any way?
I don't like the woman I was writing about. No, I like myself a lot better today. I find it, one of the patients who read the book said to me one day, she said, I can't believe that you were that woman in that book. I've known you for 10, 15 years. I can't believe that you're that woman. So it does lift some hope into these people's lives that you can survive. And I learned to be able to talk about it.
You have mentioned to me that women of all ages are responding to your book, A Way Out. They're young women, middle-aged women, older women who see the book, pick it up, and say, oh, I need to read this. If there's one thing that you would want to leave with anyone who picks up this book and reads it, what is that?
Number one, they're not responsible for the abuse. If it's abuse, if they're just trapped and they're miserable, they need to look at themselves and honor who they are. You have to honor your person. If we were made in the image and likeness of God, then we need to respect that divinity in ourselves. And I think that people today, those of my generation, were trained and taught to be a little different. You back off, you back down, you're nobody too much. And we need to come to the conclusion, the realization that that's not so. We are somebody. And the very young people today, where anything goes and everybody's wonderful, and they're beginning to see that too, that all of this external wonder about them and the fancy clothes and all the material things they have, there's something missing inside them. They have to look inward and see that they are of value. They are of value.
Good word. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for writing this very brave memoir.
You're welcome.
Bringing forward some very difficult things in your life and offering hope and a way out. Your book is extremely helpful, and I know it will help many people.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
David.
I've been talking today with Nancy Hannon, author of A Way Out, a story for anyone who feels trapped in a bad relationship. You can find Nancy on the web at nancyhannon.com. This is David Hazard, founding director of Ascent, a prep school for authors. If you have need of coaching services or book design services, you can find us on the web at itsyourlifebethere.com.